And this is the final recording. On page 170, we have the last section. It has a little bit more detail than I think probably we need to worry about, but there are some important points that I'll draw out here and make specific mention of. The first one is that morphemes are the smallest unit of meaning, and sometimes a morpheme can be more than one word. The example given here is an anti-disestablishmentarianism position announcement. If you were to take off the word announcement, all of a sudden this is an anti-disestablishmentarianism position. And that position does not mean the same thing as the position announcement, which is an advertisement that the job is open, right? If you were to take off the word position from the form word, it would be anti-disestablishmentarianism, and that right alone by itself is not the same as a position or a position announcement. So you can't break down these three long words to be individual morphemes, or they would change the meaning of what you're intending. So this is now, this very long sequence of three words is actually a morpheme. And the important thing here is, when this is the case, we actually treat these several words as if they're really one word. For instance, we add inflectional affixes to the end of a morpheme. Well, we do this in English, other languages do it differently, but in English, we add it to the end of a morpheme, which means that we can't say anti-disestablishmentarianism positions announcement if we want there to be, if we want to make plural the announcements. We can't say positions announcement, because if we do that, then we've made plural the wrong thing. If we want to make the announcements plural, if we want to communicate that there are more than one announcement, then we put the inflectional affix at the end of the whole morpheme, which is the anti-disestablishmentarianism position announcement. So we put then the S at the end to make the whole concept pluralized. If we put it in another spot, then what we've done, if we, for instance, put it at the end of the word position, then we've made anti-disestablishmentarianism position its own morpheme, and we put the S at the end of it, and we said there are more than one position that exists. And we've added the word announcement onto the end, in that case, as another morpheme to modify the first morpheme, which was only two words in that situation. Now, these inflectional affixes are an important concept to understand. We have four of them in English. One of them is the plural form of S. We just add to the end of many words. And then the other three I've mentioned before are ing, ed, and the addition of s to signal the present tense, the third person present tense. So those three, the latter three, the ing, ed, and s, are added as markers for verbs. The s for pluralizing nouns is a marker, obviously, for nouns. So we have four of these total. Adding an S, adding ing, adding ed, and adding s, but for a different reason. So the interesting thing here is, in relation to this, is that other languages have many, many more inflectional affixes than we do. For instance, as the chapter says, consider Spanish. If we said in English, the juicy pears, we would just put one S at the end of the word pears. But in Spanish, each word in the sentence would need to be pluralized. So the word would be las peras jugosas. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. But the S's appear at the end of las and the end of peras and the end of jugosas. So it's saying, it's like if we were to say, those juicy pears. If we were to pluralize every word in the sentence, but we don't do that in English, but some languages do. And then it proceeds, as I mentioned in another recording, to describe the fact that in the Czech language there are just hundreds of these different kinds of affixes, and they can be added to different parts of the words in some languages, including the middle of the words. Now I'm going to skip a couple of little bits here. There's a debate in the literature that is whether these irregular verbs are memorized individually or whether there are actually statistical rules that underlie them. And basically we think that, given the research, that there are statistical rules that are allowing us to draw inferences and make guesses about what kind of form the irregular verbs will take. But that's not a really terribly interesting battle to me, so I'm going to skip here to the end on page 180. And we're going to talk here about this Mick prefix for a little bit. So McDonald's started a campaign to try and brand their products. And they did this by adding the MC, Mick prefix, to different words that of things that they were selling. So they have like a special McDeal on McNuggets or the Chicken McGrill. You can order McSalad or McFlurry. And this prefix was originally just supposed to indicate that a product came from McDonald's. But they messed themselves up. They really shot themselves in the foot when they aired a commercial in 1981 encouraging kids to add Mick to anything, any old word, to anything they wanted to. And after they encouraged that, then people really did. And the meaning of the Mick prefix, much to their chagrin, changed from being a product of McDonald's to any old thing that's made cheap or inexpensive or maybe with shortcuts, something like that. It's a pejorative term, and we use it now especially with McJobs and McMansions, and these terms are new words that use this new prefix to mean cheap, shortcutty, inexpensive, basic, stuff like that. So very pejorative connotation. And other things happened from the McDonald's campaign. The company tried to sue for use of the prefix, but in the end it's a losing battle because the productivity of language is such that once you introduce something like they did in that commercial in 1981, then people adopt it and it becomes not proprietary, but it becomes just general use. The same box gives several examples of other kinds of words, other product names that originally were intended to mean this particular product made by this particular brand. This particular brand of product made by this particular manufacturer, like kitty litter, granola, Kleenex, crockpot, aspirin, linoleum. All these things were originally the brand name of a product, and when generic versions of this came out, people continued to refer to the generics as the brand name. And so they lose proprietary, when the productivity of language takes a word and runs off with it, and doesn't allow them to retain their proprietary nature of it, then you can't sue for use of it anymore because it's just too generally used in society. And those are the important points from the final sections of the chapter.